All right, how we feeling today? Exactly. 3, 2, 1 trans rights, everybody. Hello, Celeria's TV. Um, I don't know if you heard me over the music, but yeah, Pronouns Day isn't necessarily just for trans folks. It's for all kinds of folks who don't necessarily, you know, uh, ascribe to traditional pronouns, which is totally fine and valid. We've got non-binary folk, embracing they them. There are also people who embrace like Zer. There is like a whole kind of like world of pronoun usage, and I think a lot of people, especially a lot of cisgender people or straight people, don't tend to recognize that there is this much flexibility in our language. Like going back centuries, literally centuries, you can find people writing about how, maybe we should use different pronouns. That's a thing we could do. I believe, like in 1800s, there was a Scottish writer who was like, "Hey, we should adopt o as a pronoun." Like literally the word ou. I'm not entirely sure how that would be pronounced. O. Um, but So we have examples of this throughout history. Like singular they them has been in use since like the mid 1300s, probably earlier. So almost like 1,000 years. Um, yeah, it can be really difficult, Celerius TV, and I think that's why like having a day like International Pronoun Day is helpful because it provides us an opportunity to really dig in and like learn a little bit, expose ourselves to these new ideas that are interesting and useful and you know help us better accommodate people who are different than us. um and I think a good way of maybe going over this just a little bit is to let's look at one of the official announcements of this holiday. I don't necessarily know if I'd call it a holiday, but it is a day. Um, let's yeah, happy Pronouns Day, Riot Girl Callie. All right, let's take a look at this, okay? It'll be good, I promise. Exactly, Celerius TV. You'd rather not hurt someone's feelings or be passive activist for violence because people don't conform to gender traditionalism. That is an excellent attitude to have, and I wish more people had it. Um, so today is a chance for us to make respecting, sharing, and educating about personal pronoun use more commonplace. Referring to people by the pronouns they determine for themselves is basic human dignity. Another way of saying that is respecting other people's pronouns is not being a dick. If someone walks up to you and is like, "Hey, my name is Sue," and they look like they are male presenting, like don't you wouldn't be a dick about that, would you? Probably shouldn't be if the answer is yes. Um, and the same goes for like not non-traditional names and pronouns that you don't necessarily think go together with some how someone looks. We want to get past that as a species. We want to get past putting people into these boxes. Here are a bunch of different examples. You got the she her, you got the z them, you got the they ter, got the they them, you got the v ver, z her, she they, he him, they. You know, whatever people want, and you know what? I think a lot of people, um, exactly. You would want people to pronounce your name right. You would want people to show basic amounts of respect for you as a human being. Um, and I think that for a lot of people, there is this built-in um, like recoil away from being perceived as being wrong. So like people people don't like the idea that their assumptions about somebody's gender identity and pronouns might be wrong. Um, And so like you'll get this a lot from like conservative types who are like, hey, I these are some wild, wacky, crazy pronouns here that I don't encounter in my day to day. So like, obviously the ones that I don't recognize are invalid and silly. Um, but again, it's not necessarily that like someone who goes by they them, for example, isn't going to be like, wow, how dare you not understand implicitly my pronoun usage? No, people who use this, by the way, who go by these rather non-mainstream pronouns, they are very, very aware that they are non-mainstream pronouns. In fact, they are probably more than anybody going to be very happy to talk with you about these pronouns if you're interested in learning more. Um, they're far more likely to be better educated on the subject of pronouns than someone who's just writing off pronoun differences. For example, the very first reply here, I narrowed down the list for you. Should be easier for everyone to remember. Uh, his list only includes she and he and their various permutations, despite the fact that, again, as we previously discussed, the history of the singular they goes back literally almost 1,000 years. Um, right? Exactly. Like, this is kind of what we're dealing with when we're talking about pronoun usage. People like this are exactly why we need a day like this. Like, in an ideal world, we wouldn't necessarily need an International Pronouns Day because people would just be like, hello, how are you doing? Oh, he's doing good. And the other person would be like, I realize that the conversation I just conjured out of my brain doesn't make any sense, but for humor me that it somehow does in this hypothetical. Oh, he's doing good. And someone's just like, oh, I go by Zem. Okay, I go by Tay. So just you know, oh, okay, Tay are doing well. Like that wouldn't be a big deal. It wouldn't be a huge uh conflagration of political ideologies. It would just be a common courtesy, right? However, we currently live in an era where this is like having a day needs to happen so that we can educate people. Literally, the only point of this post, by the way, is to direct people towards the LGBT Foundation's pronouns page. Look at this. Look at all this. But what if? Look at it. It addresses everything I was just talking about. What are pronouns? Here we go. Fun fact. Here, we can look at this. This is the Oxford English Dictionary's defense and history of singular they, which they date back to around 1375 from the medieval romance William and the Werewolf. There were furries back then too, apparently. And yeah, since forms may exist in speech long before they're written down, it's likely that singular they was common even before the late 14th century. So we're talking about something that is, again, I cannot stress this enough, literally almost 1,000 years old. Um, and not only that, they go on here to reiterate that not only is they capable of being singular, but they also go on to clarify that singular you used to be a plural pronoun. The word you used to mean multiple people, and it no longer does because language changes over time. So like it's it's interesting how conservatives latch onto these ideas that have literally been discussed for like literally hundreds of years. In 1660, George Fox, the founder of Quakerism, wrote a book labeling anyone who used singular you an idiot or a fool. And 18th century grammarians like Robert Louth and Lindley Murray, both of whom sound like characters I would have made up on the spot for a D&D campaign, regularly tested students on thou as singular and you as plural, despite the fact that students used singular you when their teachers weren't looking, and teachers used singular you when the students weren't looking. Anyone who said thou and thee was seen as a fool and an idiot, or a Quaker, or at least hopelessly out of date. So, like, yeah, turns out, by the way, you is a pronoun. So all of this talk about pronouns being silly, if you are using he, if you're using anything other than he and her, is just born from a place of ignorance. Um, Aw, who is bad mouthing comrade in in chat? Why y'all mauling? Uh, it's how I call my coworker comrades. Uh, oh, Smizmar. It is a little bit more cringe, I think, but it is also more funny. But I'm also not going to use it. I'm sorry. All right, I love all of you in chat. Okay, I want you to know that. Um, yeah. So, we have all kinds of different takes in this, but yeah, we need to take into account the entire history of the singular word they. It is very um, I think it's very important that we respect all of these pronouns. They are all equally valid despite their length of usage. Because I'm going to let you in on a secret, and I can say this because I have a degree in English. Um, Words are made up. They can mean literally anything we want them to mean. So people can literally have any kind of word for a pronoun. That that's how the language works. Okay, if it gets the point across, it functions as a piece of language. Okay, so like it's not that big of a deal. Just call people what they want to be called. In other words, International Pronouns Day is now officially just call people what they want to be called day. Asshole. It's a bit of a mouthful, I know, but the full name of the holiday doesn't really roll off the tongue as well as International Pronouns Day. Okay. I don't have an MS in English. No, I have a bachelor's degree in English. I did have to. I wrote a thesis. I did write that. You know. Um, it's true. It's true. Every wall will fall. We can even force words that previously meant something to mean another thing. It's really quite incredible how malleable language is. Because when you get down to it, all language is us blowing air out of our mouths, and then this magical thing happens in our brains where we hear that sound and we're able to derive meaning from it. Um, it's actually pretty cool that we can do that. But when you actually look at like the mechanisms of what we're doing, it's pretty insane. Um, uh, Jose of Scranton, I agree. The rules of a language should be owned by those who speak it. Um, but also, rules of languages are completely made up and arbitrary. So like that, it's one of those things where like I agree with you, but also it's all make believe at a certain level. At a certain level, all of human society is just playing a very very advanced game of make believe. Um, and that's true. Every wall will fall. Language is used often to gatekeep, and that's to be 100% honest with you. That's really when you get down to it, what people like Zach Moore here are doing when they say she, her, he, him are the only valid pronouns, right? Because what they're saying is effectively that if you have any other pronoun configuration, you are not valid. Um, you are not welcome in my conception of society, right? Um, I that is something. I don't think Latin is a dead language. Latin lives on in its offspring. Much like how the memory of parents lives on in the children, so too does the offspring and permutations of Latin survive in the common languages used today in Western civilization. True. Zach Moore does have a beard, and beards are now ruined for all of you. I don't make the rules. Sorry. Um, Unfortunately, I also need to apologize because I do not personally remember the rules, or I do not make the rules rather in Texas. Let's take a look at Texas. This has to be good news. It's coming out of Texas, right? Texas allows. Oh, that's good. More freedom allows social workers. Social workers are based to deny. Wait a minute. LGBTQ and disabled clients. Wait a minute. This is a bad story coming out of Texas. What the heck? Texas officials are facing backlash after deciding to allow social workers to turn away clients on the basis of their disability, sexual orientation, or gender identity. At the direction of the governor's office, the Texas State Board of Social Work Examiners voted unanimously to eliminate disability, sexual orientation, and gender identity from the non-discrimination clause of the Code of Conduct. Is there any reason given for why they should be able to do that? Let's take a look, shall we? Uh, let's see. The national decision to follow the governor's recommendation rather than seek public comment. I wonder, gee whiz, I wonder why the board decided to follow the governor's recommendation rather than seek public comment. Um, let's see. Told the board during public comments that their decision was incredibly disheartening. We live in such a civil society, guys, where like social workers can literally be told, yeah, you're free to discriminate against queer folk and anyone who's like, has a disability, like mental or physical. And the harshest condemnation they get is that their decision is disheartening and not like bald-facedly monstrous or like an indication of absolute callous hatred for people who are different than them. Abbott's office said the change was made simply to align the rules with the state's occupants code, which determines how and when the state may discipline social workers. It's not surprising that a board would align its rules with statutes passed by the legislature, said Renee Easy, spokeswoman for Abbott's office. Francis said the board's decision creates the impression that people with disabilities can be discriminated against despite federal rules that are in place to protect them. It might give that impression because that's explicitly what it does. Actually, it's just look at how politely this is phrased. Creates the impression that people might be discriminated against. It's disturbing even if it's unintentional. Except that it's very clearly intentional because if we look up here, it was a decision to follow the governor's recommendation. So this was an intentional decision that came down from the top. Seven advocacy groups, including Equality Texas, Transgender Education Network of Texas, and Texas Freedom Network, released a joint statement Thursday decrying the board's move. Unsurprising. Pro-discrimination groups couldn't get this passed into law but Governor Abbott has done their bidding by pushing it through administratively in an obscure meeting he thought few people were watching. Um, yeah, let's see. Gloria Canseco, presiding officer of the Behavioral Health Council, said topics relating to gender and gender identity would be revisited during the council's meeting this month. She did not indicate whether the decision to remove protections for people with disabilities would be revisited. And that's all that this story says. So basically, if you are in Texas and you have a physical or mental disability, and you need to go get help from a social worker, social workers, who, by the way, open the doors to many, many different kinds of opportunities for people who are in desperate or, you know, uh, bad social or economic situations. If you go in there and you are visibly queer, if you are visibly disabled, either due to mental problems or due to a physical deformity or something, a social worker who sees you and feels slightly uncomfortable can just be like, "No, I'm not going to see you. Next." And then no matter what you do, you're fucked. So this is just awful, awful thing. And there's really nothing that anyone can do about it. You can protest it. You can certainly, if you live in Texas, you can go out and protest this decision. But because it was made from the administrative side, uh, really the only solution here is voting out like the governor and voting out the people who get put into these positions to run these councils and boards. Yeah, exactly, Jose of Scranton. Take it to the streets if you can. And, Texas is really big, so you might not be able to do it effectively. However, I would also say, like, this is yet again another really big and important reason that it's really, really, really important that when you vote this year, look at your local elections. Whether you're voting in person or voting through mail-in ballot, please look at your local elections. Do the minimal amount of research it takes to understand political positions of your local races, your statewide races. Because while that might be a little bit boring, and you might not even necessarily understand what the different offices do, putting people in strategic positions that can advance, social justice, who can advance, and economic policies that benefit the working class. These are things that voting can do, especially if you are voting intentionally to try and support those local candidates. Local candidates, by the way, are a lot easier to vote in than national candidates. It just works out that way. A lot of elections can come down to a handful of votes when it is a local race. So hop online, go to your candidates' web pages, see what they have to say about themselves, see what other information you can dig up on Google. It'd be nice if there was like a handy like database for all of this, but sometimes there's not, depending on the local race, obviously. But if you don't want to see your rights curtailed because you are different from an able-bodied cisgender, man, maybe consider doing that extra work just so you are not unintentionally screwed over. Okay. Um, yeah, it's a sad situation, but you know what? At least we have International Pronouns Day. Okay. Um, all of you in chat right now who are trans or non-binary or agender, or have other gender identities, and if you use different pronouns, I just want you to know you're valid, you're loved, and you're always welcome here, comrades. Okay? All right. Well, that was a surprisingly smooth section. Yeah, exactly, Gregathol. Uh, validity check. It's like an oil check. I put the little strip down into the validity tank. Man, my visualizations, my metaphors are really lacking tonight. The dipstick, yes, exactly, the dipstick. You know what? That's a good question, Jose of Scranton. I was 100%. You know what, Riot Girl Callie? I would love a pronouns vid. Send me the pronouns vid, please. Um, but I was really sure that titling this stream "Happy Pronouns Day" would attract the chuds, but so far no one is biting. Chud sad. Chud sad. True. Man. Alright. Nice. Mods can post links. Awesome.
Welcome to my unfinished.
I don't know who this is, but we're gonna watch it. Because why not, right?
Studio.
Let's learn together, friends.
Hey YouTube, so today I have something incredibly exciting to share with you guys. As many of you know, I wrote a book, The ABCs of LGBT+, which comes out October 25th, but is available for pre-order right now, links below. And some of you might be curious regarding what the book covers and what kinds of concepts it unpacks and explores, so I just figured I'll read you some of it. And in doing so, I'll spotlight some of the wonderful voices besides my own that are featured in the book. I'll probably do a couple videos like this, and today's is going to be all about pronouns. So what are pronouns? Well, according to the ABCs of LGBT, pronouns are words used to refer to nouns when not specifically using a noun's proper name.
Language is
I'm
dumb.
sure all of you are familiar with some pronouns like he, she, it, them, they,
Oh,
that.
oh, Wagonator, you silly cad, you. Also, you know that children don't transition, right? You know that's literally not a thing that happens, right? like like it's not like a 10-year-old goes into the doctor and they're like, "Sure, kid, here's some titty skittles." Boom. Like it doesn't work like that. We've gone over this before, Wagonator. It's not that's not how kids who want to transition are treated by the medical establishment at all. No, Wagonator, it literally does not happen. Uh Let You know what? Here, I'm gonna type this in Google. Kids younger than 10 transitioning. All right, let's see. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Are you talking? Wait, are you talking about like old research? Or are you talking about new research? Because like if you go back to 2016, there's a bunch of articles that are like, I don't know about all these transgender children. Um yeah, it's Oh, you know what? Funny you mentioned PragerU, Riot Girl Callie. We will get to PragerU later. Um do 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 do. Yeah, it's really not a problem. Um, like basically what I'm finding on this Google search is like parents accepting their kids as trans at young ages, but that's a lot different than like medically transitioning, which literally does not happen until kids can go through puberty, which is, later. It's later. And they're given puberty blockers so that like they make an informed decision. That by the way, that's literally what puberty blockers are for. You know that, right? Like puberty blockers are entirely to make sure that kids are making informed decisions. Like that's what they're for. Well, Wagonator, I like transitioning a child doesn't happen. Like it's not like children are like parents are allowed to like forcibly inject estrogen into their children. It's That's not a thing that happens. Wagonator, puberty blockers have been used for to treat children for a very long time. Literally decades. It's just that they are being used now for a slightly different purpose, which is to delay puberty, not in people who have hormone problems, like but instead in people who are in kids who are maybe wanting to transition when they hit like 16, 15, or 16, it just delays puberty by like a year or two for those kids while they go to therapy to figure out their gender identities, okay? That's literally all puberty blockers do. And it's to make sure that kids aren't going through like two puberties, because it turns out going through two puberties is actually not great for the human body. It causes like irreversible things to happen that can cause a lot of mental anguish. Um, so yeah, I'm glad you understand now. We've gone over this for you. So with that being said, let's continue learning about pronouns.
Fun fact about pronouns, though, many languages around the world have this thing called grammatical gender. Grammatical gender is simply a noun class system. It divides nouns into different groups and provides a system of agreement between them and other kinds of words, like articles, verbs, adjectives, etc. Some languages gender
Abolish the class system in pronouns. Abolish it, I say.
Everything. Even words for objects that don't have strong cultural associations with masculinity or femininity. In France, for example, chairs are feminine and airplanes are masculine. This is a great illustration of how a word's grammatical gender has less to do with actual gender and more to do with having a set of rules
planes
that
look like dicks
and form agreements between words. In other words, grammatical gender is just a grammatical thing, not a gender thing. Unlike many other languages around the world, modern English actually has no grammatical gender. This may surprise some people, seeing as many—
Wagonator, the end of civilization is realizing that words can mean different things, and that words are literally made up, and you can make up any word you want, because that's how language works? You mean the end of civilization is just adding new words to the lexicon? Are you seriously just saying that, like, treating Merriam-Webster as like your guide to the apocalypse is the end of civilization? What the fuck, man? Man, look, if your civilization is so weak that it can't take a couple new words in the lexicon, I'm sorry, but your civilization deserves to crumble into the trash it is, okay?
English pronouns have strong gender associations. For example, two of the most common pronouns used to refer to people are she and he. And our society typically associates he with men and she with women. These associations, however, are purely a social and not grammatical one. Often because of these associations, though, pronouns are used as a form of gender expression for some people. If you find any of—
This is all very true. This person is being very accurate here. Like, when you get down to the grammatical function of these words, he and she function identically, the only difference between them being the gendered connotations of the words. So you could literally, that's why you can literally replace them with any other kind of word that you can think of, and still get the same effect. That's why you can replace he with z, or them, like you can replace them with any kind of word, because really when you get down to it, pronouns have roughly the same function. It's just for different aesthetic purposes that we use them.
This is interesting. I'm literally reading from my book. The script is my book, so that's just a nugget of information. You like this video? You like my book? Using the correct pronouns can help some people feel affirmed in their
I like
gender
this
because they're
person.
being perceived and referred to in a way they feel represents them. This is why pronouns can be so important for some people. However, a person's pronouns can also have nothing to do with their gender.
True.
Not sure why a person might use pronouns unrelated to their gender? Hang tight, we'll unpack that soon. Now let's look at one of the most common gender-neutral pronouns, they. I'm going to do a whole video devoted to the word they. In that, we'll talk about how they can be used singularly and still be grammatically correct, and we'll also explore some other gender-neutral pronouns, some neo-
Look at all those!
This is why I'm not going to talk
Look at all
about
of
any
them.
of that now, but I'm excited for that video because it needs to exist. So like we mentioned before, some people use pronouns to express their gender, and some don't. Here's Tori to elaborate.
It's true, guys. Be nice to boomers. We have some boomers in chat who are very based and very cool, okay?
On the latter a little bit, and share her experience with pronouns.
When I think of my own gender, consistency is null. On some days I wear dresses and wonder if I'll ever surgically remove my breasts. On others I wear bow ties and wonder why, if womanhood feels so hellish, manhood doesn't feel like the heaven I once thought it would be. What remains the same in my conception of my gender is a sense of queerness, that is, strangeness, peculiarity, deviation from the norm. That is not to say that I believe genderqueerness to be abnormal. In fact, I would argue that it is a very common experience. Genderqueerness, to me, simply means an experience with gender that is queer, that creates a cognitive dissonance between one's intrinsic identity and the values and expectations of their society. For me, pronouns play no role in this self-conception. In fact, I find myself quite nonchalant about them precisely because they are indicators of a highly gendered society in which I feel I have no place. Thus, I find myself using she/her/hers pronouns not because it feels right, as is the case in many people's experiences, but simply because it is convenient. When most people see me, they will not ask about pronouns. They will call me a girl, and I, too often, will say nothing to the contrary. Why? It lessens the blow of the dissonance. It keeps me sane. In another conflicting sense, using she/her/hers pronouns allows me to plunge deeper into the dissonance, to confuse the rigidity of my culture even more by refusing to match my non-binary identity with non-binary pronouns. A person of any gender can assume any pronouns they wish, and in doing so myself I feel empowered and further detached from the standards of my society.
Based.
Tori wrote that blurb for my book, and I love listening to her thoughts on pronouns because she's so flippin' smart. As for me, IID is genderqueer, and the pronouns I use, because you guys always ask me what pronouns I use, I don't know if it's because I cut my hair, or if I kind of shifted my name on Twitter from Ashley to Ash or what, but all of you, there's just been a flood of what pronouns do you use, so I'll just address that. I don't have a preference, really. I think she, her, they, them are my favorite, but I don't like any one more than the other. No pronoun really causes me gender dysphoria or gender euphoria. I'd probably even be okay with he, him pronouns as long as I knew you were doing it in a respectful way, in a I want to validate Ashley's genderqueerness way, not a douchey way. So yeah, I don't know why, and I'm not sure if a ton of other people feel this way. I know some other people feel this way, but I'm just really pronoun indifferent. The only things I don't like are, one, when people make fun of my gender and parody my pronouns. They say things like, oh, social justice warrior, the next thing you're gonna do is identify as a toaster, and your pronouns will be toast and toast self. That's
Conservatives, if you're out there and you're just silently watching, please come up with new jokes. I beg of you. Please. Please. There are so many good jokes out there that could be made about trans people. Like, genuinely good jokes. You know, like how we can joke about, like, you know, people make jokes about race, people make jokes about, like, ethnicity. We could be making jokes about trans people that are, like, not extremely bad and shitty, but the only joke that conservatives can come up with is, oh, I identify as a blank, you know, like, insert random object, like attack helicopter. And that joke they've been making repeatedly with slightly different variations for, like, the entire time I've been on the internet. like a very long time, guys. Like 15 years almost. It's it's been a while. So like come up with some new material. Like get together and workshop it, okay?
That's not cute. That's just disrespectful. So I don't like that. And then number 2, this is a weird one, but I don't like when people think they misgender me by using the wrong pronoun and they make a huge deal about it. Since I'm pretty genderqueer, you can't really misgender me to begin with, and since I'm pronoun indifferent, you really can't.
Also, true, right, girl Callie. If your intent is to do harm, your joke is gonna be shit. So don't make it, okay? There we go.
Can't use the wrong pronoun. Finley, be quiet. When it comes to me, you're probably not gonna mess up. But sometimes people think they mess up and they say, oh, Ashley, I mean Ash, I mean she, I mean he, I mean, whoa, not he, I mean they, I mean malfunction. That, like, makes me really uncomfortable. That turns me bright red and I just freeze. That is something I don't like. If you think you used the wrong pronouns for me, don't worry. I don't think you're a bad person or ignorant or anything like that. Perhaps just apologize quickly and move on. It's just not necessary to make a production of the apology. Like I said, I don't know why over-the-top apologies make me uncomfortable, but they do. Maybe it comes from a place of like internalized transphobia, of not wanting my gender to be a really big deal or ever be an inconvenience for others. Maybe? I'm not sure.
That's actually a super common feeling for a lot of trans people to have, or like people who exist outside of the binary. Like not wanting to cause like a ruckus or like a scene. We want to be just normal people who exist in a public space or a social space. And like the production of an apology can make us all very uncomfortable, both the person who's apologizing and the person who's being apologized to. So really just move on. It's not that big of a deal if pronouns get screwed up. So it becomes a big deal when someone tells you their pronouns and you just mess up every time. Like every time. At a certain point, like you're just not putting in the effort to actually respect a person. So just like put in that effort, you know? And then if you do mess up, don't be like over dramatic about it, okay?
Sure, what do you guys think is my deal with that? And do any of you feel that way too ever? So that's the end of this video. Be sure to buy my book if you liked this. This script literally was my book. This script was my book.
This was a really good video. I like them a lot. Good content, Riot Girl Callie. We're gonna throw that tab into the tab bar. There we go. Pronoun Day. Happy International Pronoun Day, everybody. You know what? Every wall will fall. I don't think it's a crime to call women dude, to be 100% honest with you. I know it very much depends, right? Like who you're talking to. So it might be good to get out of that habit, like, as a default, but I think for the most part, most people are going to understand. But, like, maybe if you're just meeting a trans woman for the first time, try not to call him dude, you know? Exactly. If you know someone doesn't like it, do your best not to be a dick, you know? All right. Good job, us. I've been live for almost an hour now. And we've only gotten through one section of the things I was going to talk about. We've got to hit the ground running, folks. Aw, thank you. Every wall will fall. I'm trying to do a good job, you know? I'm trying to do good at this. Like I have a lot of podcasting experience, so I'm good at just running my mouth. But you know, I'm relatively new to this streaming thing, which is a very different kind of beast, you know? I don't get to edit my dumb statements or my stutters out, you know? Um, all right. Riot Girl, Callie, I use the analogy of Bob. Say you work with someone named Robert, and one day he says, I prefer to be called Bob. If you continue to call him Robert, you are being disrespectful. True! See, like, this is one of the things a lot of cis people don't understand. They do what trans people are asking of them as a basic courtesy to other cis people all the time. Like, calling people nicknames, calling people, like, a preferred name, like, I know, like, what's another one? Like, oh, yeah, like, you know, wow, I just blanked. I just blanked. Holy crap. My thought just left my head. There we okay, yes, okay. Yeah, it's like if somebody was like, hi, my name's Richard, and you just were like, no, your name's not Richard, your name is Dick. I'm gonna call you Dick from now on. And they're like, well, I'd really prefer it if you called me Richard, though. No, your name is Dick. Sorry, it's always going to be Dick. There's nothing you can do to change your name. Why are you calling yourself Robert? We all know that Robert means Dick, so we're gonna call you Dick, okay? Um, well, the reason Ninja, your name's in yellow, which is an interesting color. Ninja Tuna Nanana. Um, the reason I say cis people don't understand that is because when it comes to trans people or people with different pronouns, often a lot of cis folk will insist on, oh, I'm not going to call you they them. I'm not going to call you z zer. I'm not going to like use your pronouns that you have told me you prefer. Because I don't consider them valid, or I'm going to purposely misgender you because I don't think that you being trans is valid. Um, like there's just a lot of that sort of a conception out there, which goes back to why we need an International Pronouns Day in the first place. Um, you know, the issue is that it shouldn't matter what your gender identity is. People should be able to treat themselves like each other with that respect, but a lot of cis people don't show that respect to trans people specifically when it comes to like calling them their new name or calling them like by their preferred pronouns, you know, accepting them as they are and what they prefer to be called. There's still a lot of resistance to that, and just as like a to bring you up to speed with what I mean, like where did I put this? There we go. To bring you up to speed with what I mean, here's the announcement or from one organization, Happy International Pronouns Day. You know, today is a day for respecting and sharing and educating about personal pronouns more, and educating about personal pronouns. And the very first reply to it is, I narrowed down the list to you, should be easier for everyone to remember, and just completely dismissing all of the other pronouns up here in favor of she, her. So, like, this is a very common perspective to encounter when it comes to gender identity and pronouns. It's really not that uncommon for trans folk or people who aren't in the gender binary to encounter stuff like this. And you know, we should just be respectful of other people. That's my basic premise here.